Hello and welcome to Office Hours. We are joined by Jason Corrigan from ScriptSender today. Welcome, Jason, to Office Hours.
Thank
Jason,
you.
You're welcome. Just so the audience knows, Jason had a big weekend, just got engaged. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, huge weekend.
Huge weekend. And so it begins.
Oh boy, yeah. That was the easy part, I was told.
All right. So, Jason, before we dive into this, why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you came into healthcare and what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. I've been in healthcare now for about 15 years. I started my stint up north. I now live in West Palm Beach and actually work for the software company ScriptSender, but I've been doing certain aspects up north for a little bit of time too. I worked for a radiology practice for a bit, which was called AdRad. And then I also was working in downtown Boston, working for a company that did a kind of an added benefit to insurances for companies, to add specialists that they can actually use as well outside of their normal doctors for specifics. So I was in that industry for a little bit as well. And now being down here in West Palm Beach in the software industry, I'm helping help with the integration of everything that's actually going on for specific health systems. So that's kind of what we do with our product. And there's many things that we'll probably go through today in a short span of time of some of the added benefits of what we do for ScriptSender for those specific entities.
So yeah, let's dive into that. I mean, it's 2022, call it 2023. Healthcare is still using faxes. The payers are using faxes. The providers are using faxes. It's an outdated technology. It's cumbersome. Tell us how ScriptSender kind of mitigates faxes.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk about that as an industry. So at this point in time, still, believe it or not, over 80% of the healthcare industry is still using fax at this point, which is insane to me. It's, it's 1970 and it's 2023 at this point in time. We're almost there and we're still using the same exact technology from beforehand. With the product that we actually have as a core, we actually allow ourselves to integrate with RIS-HIS systems, health information systems, radiology information system, EMR systems, EHR systems to be able to exchange data back and forth. And instead of using a fax component that people are really used to, electronic faxes, manual faxes, or even hand printed out, order scripts that they hand to these patients, and patients are actually walking into specific facilities to get something performed, we use a virtual printer. So what we do, and a lot of the components and the best portion of what we do, we call it the magic, is that we actually grab the information in transit. So let's just use this as a scenario, because we're talking about radiology. Let's just use that. So, a radiology practice would actually be our specific customer, right? And they have their referral base that's over here on the right-hand side. And what they're actually doing is getting those, specific scripts or those order scripts for CT, MRI, or anything like that via fax. So instead of using that, we're not changing any of their workflow. They can live and breathe in their EMR system to perform what they actually do day in and day out. But instead of hitting fax now, they actually hit print. And when they hit print, we actually grab the information in transit, first name, last name, date of birth. And those data elements we can use and actually make it tangible for actually accepting that information into another system. So for instance, the EMR to the RIS system. So what we do is we take that information, we make it into like an HL7 message. That message then is ingested into that system, and then it goes to a to be scheduled work list for those schedulers now. So instead of the schedulers doing a lot of that manual intervention from beforehand, they're looking like at a PDF kind of script. They're like, oh, I got to type in this first name, I got to type in this last name, I got to type in, the PID, the MRN. Now, all that information is already in the system at that point in time. They just do a lookup. They find that patient, great. If not, they have the new patient. All the information is actually there. And then on top of that as well, what we actually do is get the information back to the EMR system or those referrers. So let's say that, the actual exam is performed at that point in time. Once it's performed, a radiologist is reading what has actually been performed. Once it's signed, we actually deliver that result back to the EMR system as well for that referrer. So that's kind of how we integrate with systems instead of having to use a lot of that manual intervention at that point in time. So we're doing that interface that's actually going back and forth.
Got it. So Script Center is more than just eliminating faxes. It's more about how you're interfacing with data streams, capturing data. So can you kind of expand on how the tech works with such things as like referrals, I think you just mentioned, but image sharing,
Sure.
orders, those types of things? How does that work?
Yeah, so not just, it's not just about the ingestion of an order. We can do any type of clinical documentation, if it's insurance cards, if it's actual clinical notes or anything like that, that can actually come into the system itself. But to your point on what you're actually saying, David, is important, right? It's not just that 1 to 2, right? So inbound, outbound kind of situation. We have added benefits with our technology as well. So what we can do for those results, for instance, in those reports, is we can embed links in those reports that allow us to be able to see those images as well with our own technology called IVUS. And what IVUS is image view, image share. So as soon as they're looking at that actual result, they click that link, it pops up in a web browser. They actually have the full images in front of them as well to be able to look at. So now you have your report, but you have your images with a full diagnostic tool set at that point in time, but it is a clinical viewer that they can actually use. And there's other facets as well that we can actually do. We can help with eligibility lookup, for instance. We have smart technology that we call SMRT that allows us to be able to help with some of that language that you normally get to in those reports. Radiologists themselves, they have their own language, and it might be difficult for a patient to understand some of that language. So what we do with our smart technology is we actually do a underlining of those words and phrases, so you actually have a dictionary version of what that actually is. So for instance, if it was, I don't know what, something simple, right? I don't, what is an abdomen, or what is a cyst, or anything like that. We actually have a dictionary version of that as well, so that the patient can understand that information when they actually get it back to themselves as well. So that's some of that kind of additional work we do. We go into so many other modules as well, but that's just a couple of those aspects that we deal with right now.
So expand on that a little bit. So you're taking the radiology report or a clinical note, and you can essentially put it in layman's terms so the patient can understand that?
That's absolutely correct. Yes. So with what we actually do with that smart technology that we're talking about, those layman terms is exactly that dictionary version. So anything that you're actually seeing in front of you, it could be a little mistaken. You know what I mean? People, even it could be the worst news, something cancerous at that point in time, and they don't understand some of that language. Well, we delve into that to make it easier for the patient to be able to see that information, or even the refer for that instance as well. Yes.
That's huge, because especially with like patient satisfaction scores that are starting to be implemented, those patient satisfaction scores also tie to reimbursement now. So for a radiologist or a cardiologist or some other group out there that is leveraging that tech, that helps with patient satisfaction scores. So that's pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is prior authorizations.
Yep, sure.
So yeah. So I know Script Center has partnered with Infinix on patient prior authorizations. Can you just kind of walk us through that workflow with Script Center and the benefits of having an integration between Infinix and Script Center, and beyond that? I know you've mentioned radiology a bit, but also what markets are you guys serving to help solution the challenges in the markets today?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that we have done just recently in the past, I would say 1.5 to 2 years with Infinix, is that partnership itself, right? So we knew that, having that type of information that you guys really needed using our software, getting that information in, if that's the order or if that's the actual clinical note, to be able to get that prior authorization, we can manipulate that data to be able to give it to you properly so that it's delivered properly. With that, what we're actually doing, and when we have use cases of this right now, especially with our own customers back and forth with the two, with our companies right now, is that we have actually helped with about, let's just use one use case right now, that 80% of those prior authorizations is actually going through this mechanism now. So we have API endpoints that we actually deal with you guys to be able to deliver that information back and forth. And when we're doing that, we're collecting the information that you're looking for and then understanding that these specific modalities need prior authorization. So when we're doing that, we're delivering the essential information to both the Infonex product for you guys, but also to the actual risk system for our customer that we're dealing with our partnership itself. So that has gone tenfold right now with everything we actually done. And if you guys ever wanted to see any of that information, if you actually went to our website, there is a use case for that under scriptcenter.com. And if you just go to some of those testimonials, we have one with CMI, which is Chesapeake Medical Imaging. And they have been an absolute fantastic customer between the two of us using the products that we actually have brought to them. And that was what I was trying to get at with that whole 80% kind of utilization, to be able to streamline and automate those processes instead of using that manual intervention that you would actually have to do to get those payers to understand that information, getting that prior authorization, going out to those RBMs, figuring out everything that's actually going on at that point in time. So it's been very intricate, and it's been actually successful across the board for everybody and all partners involved at this point in time. Oh,
So
and then
just
the other
for clarification.
The other thing too that you were bringing up, David, is that what are we doing outside of radiology, right? What other markets are we actually in at this point in time? So being that our software is agnostic at this point in time, it doesn't matter what we're dealing with, okay? Radiology was a huge niche for us when we first started the company, but at this point in time, with the expansion and the ever-growing product that we actually have as a company itself, we've gone into other areas too, like oncology, surgically, with surgical entities, lab. We've done huge hospitals at this point in time as well. So we don't have to be in that niche of just radiology, and we're agnostic enough to be able to work with anything as long as we understand what we're trying to accomplish for those workflows and get that information back and forth. We can be that assistant to be able to make that happen.
So essentially, it doesn't really matter what market or segment, I should say, within healthcare that you're dealing with. It's all about the data flow, capturing that data, and then positioning it or configuring it for their workflow, their specific workflow.
Absolutely correct, for sure.
Very good, awesome. Well, anything else that you would like to? I get what I want you to do. So Chris Kraft is the CEO of ScriptCenter, and Jason and Chris go back quite a ways. So tell us about that, because it's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah, sure. So I've known Chris for over 15 years now, and been in business with him for quite some time as well. Being in business, meaning that I have been with him on 3 different stints. So this is my 3rd stint of actually being with Chris. I started with him at that first company that we were talking about, Best Doctors, for some time. He was also the CIO of that radiology company that we were talking about, which was Advanced Radiology Consultants at that point. And he came up with this actual software. He came up with this understanding of, use cases of what was actually happening in that referral base at that point in time for radiology. And he's like, man, this is just terrible. And we need to do something to be able to streamline these workflows. So he came up with the product ScriptCenter at that point in time. He knew that this would be so successful that he decided that, I'm over the cold weather at this point. So he went ahead with his wife and he moved down to West Palm Beach, Florida. So he's been down here for some time. And then I got a call after working in New York for a long time. I was working for a very large hospital association as well, called Montefiore, out of the Bronx. And I had gotten a phone call from him, and he had said, we have an opportunity right now that we're doing, and I would love you to come down here to be able to facilitate some of this. And if you want to be able to do that, it's here and available. So we had a great conversation in downtown Boston one day when he was at a conference, and then this is where we're at now, when we're actually making a lot of things happen. So I'm extremely happy with where we started and where we're at this point in time, for sure.
Got it. Very cool. Well, hey, No more questions. Really appreciate the opportunity to hear more about ScriptSender, the history of ScriptSender, and all the feature functionality. And again, thank you for joining us for office hour. And maybe in the near future we can talk again.
Appreciate it. Absolutely. Now I saw here too, Laura raised her hand. Is she asking a question? She got something over here that she wants to say?
No, she said, hi, Jason. That's what she said.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
All right. Yep. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks, Jason.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it today.